Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another review video. Today is the beginning of my brand new project. I kind of hinted about it in some of my other videos, but next month, the brand new Sword Art Online movie, Sword Art Online Progressive, Aria of a Starless Night, will be debuting in theaters, select theaters around the time on December 3rd. And I think now is finally the time to talk about my favorite anime series of all time, Sword Art Online, or if you don't want to say that, you can say SAO. Now, I did a whole video on what Sword Art Online means to me and how one of my best friends introduced me to it, the whole story about that. It's on my channel, you guys can go watch it. But just to give you guys a quick little update about that from that video to kind of jump into this video, is that when I really wanted to start watching anime, the first anime that my friend recommended to me was just Sword Art Online. Nothing else, just that. I ended up watching the show that following day, binged the entire first season that day, and then the next day I binged the entirety of season 2. And when I first started watching it, there was only 2 seasons. There was the first movie that was coming out, but at that time, there was only 2 seasons. And I instantly fell in love with its story, its characters, how relatable this series is. Like, again, go through my channel. There's a video all about that where I talk about all that stuff. But I've been wanting to talk about this series for a long time. And I thought to myself, okay, how am I going to do this? You know, I could do it season by season. That would be quicker. But I want to go big with this. Since it is my favorite anime series, I want to go big. So I am actually going to be reviewing this series by story arcs. The title will say SAO Review Part 1, and then the title of the arc that I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to go in chronological order. So for this first video, this is Part 1, we're going to be talking about the very first story arc, which is the Aincrad Arc. And since this isn't a first reaction, this series has been around for a little while. Even though its most recent season finished up in 2020. Actually, was it 2020 or 2021? I can't remember. Regardless, I will be getting into a little bit of spoiler territory because I do want to give you guys a quick little synopsis of what each arc brings to the table. So if you're interested at all, and you don't care about having minor spoilers said, still watch. But, if you want to go into this completely blind, I thank you for your support. Don't click on this video. With that being said, we are going to be talking about the very first story arc, which is the Aincrad Arc. Now, in season 1 of the anime, it's actually divided into 2 arcs. So the first arc, which is Aincrad, is the first half of the first season. Now, this first arc is all about, the whole series in general is about our main character, who is Kirito. And in this first arc, there is a new video game system called the Nerve Gear, where you basically put a helmet on your head and you go to sleep and you virtually go into a video game to play while your body is unconscious. Your body is just kind of resting while you play the game. And as soon as Kirito logs into this new game, which is titled Sword Art Online, he finds out from the game's developer, Akihiko Kayaba, that all 10,000 players in this game are trapped in the world of Aincrad, and the only way to escape is to climb all 100 floors and defeat 100 bosses. And if you die in the game, you die in real life. That's basically our plot for this first story arc, our introduction to Sword Art Online. Now, throughout this first story arc is basically where everything really comes together, where we're introduced to our big main characters, such as Asuna, Klein, Aegil, Silica, Lisbeth. The list goes on. It's what really introduces us to all these characters and really sets the groundwork for what we can see later on in this series. But essentially, this first story arc is all about Kirito traveling through the different floors of Aincrad, trying to survive and not die. Now, there isn't really necessarily filler in Sora Online. Like, there are filler, but it's more of like what happens in these filler episodes eventually always leads into something of significance that will progress through the story and will have some impact on in the future. And for the Aincrad arc, there's really 2 episodes that for me, I'm just like, I really don't care. They introduced this annoying character that I still don't like, but I get the importance of that character. But what's great about this introduction is that, the basis of this series is about humans going into the virtual world to play video games and how, people act differently when they play video games. And that's something that this series explores, and how Kirito is a character that really is more like, okay, I'm a good person in real life, so I'm going to be a good person in this game. But gamers, we all know that when we go to play a game, sometimes we like to be the good guy, sometimes we like to be the bad guy. And that's something I'm really going to give this show props in, especially with this first story arc, is that you really get to see how relatable these characters are and how the decisions they make are actual decisions that people would make in the real world when it comes to video games. And there are jokes too, like a guy is going to make a female character and pretend to be a female while he's playing. They customize their characters to look attractive and whatnot. Like, all of that stuff is there. And you really sit and think to yourself, God, people actually do that when you play these games. But what caught me really by surprise is that I was all for just Kirito traveling through this game to try to beat it. Like, okay, I'm into this. If each episode was going to be him tackling a different floor, I'm all for it. But unfortunately, that's not exactly how this story kind of goes. And I'm not going to get into big spoilers because I'll probably bring that up when I get to my second part video when we talk about the next story arc. But essentially, that's our main gist for this arc. It's Kirito trying to survive the world of Aincrad, making his way through these 100 levels, defeating the bosses, and trying to get out alive, while also meeting the character of Asuna, who will later become probably one of the greatest things to ever happen in the show, and something that completely took me by surprise. Like, I kind of figured they were going to go somewhere with Kirito and Asuna, but when it does happen, when the two finally come together, I was intrigued. I was definitely intrigued. It took me by surprise, but I was excited to see where it goes. And if I'm going to review the Aincrad arc, it's a great arc. It has 2 episodes that I really just kind of don't care about because, again, I don't want to spoil everything, but there is a character that I just find really annoying, but the character is important to the series. I have to admit that. But those episodes, I'm just like, okay, can we get back to the main plot now? But I get it. I totally get it. And I would give the Aincrad arc an A-, but I have to give it an A+ just because the whole introduction to this series and also the memories that I have from watching this arc for the first time, they're just so good, and it's such a great introduction to these great characters that are going to go through so much in this series, and how, especially the evolution of how these characters start, especially when we get to later on in the series. It's just full of nostalgia for me. I have such a great time rewatching this arc, and I never get bored with it. Despite how I feel about those 2 episodes, the memories and the whole arc itself, I have to give it an A+, just because it's just great. I highly recommend it. If you guys are ever interested in watching it, you can watch it via streaming services. I think it's pretty much on mostly anything. So you can watch it on Netflix, Hulu, all that good stuff. Or you can shell out some money to get it on Blu-ray. It is a little bit expensive, but it's worth it. But yeah, I think that's all that I can really say about the Aincrad arc without going into too big of spoilers. But I just kind of want to give the general gist of it, what I think about it, the memories I have with it. and then give it its rating. So yeah, Sora Online Aincrad Arc definitely gets an A+. And again, I can't, just throwing the negatives aside, I just have too much nostalgia for it. And another thing that I want to bring up really quickly is that the animation for its introduction is still really good. I mean, it's not something that I would call like stand out like Demon Slayer, but for how it starts with how it goes, it just gets better. But for how it's like within its first 2 seasons, it's fine. I like it. It has some beautiful moments and beautiful scenes, but nothing really to write home about until we get probably to the first movie and then season 3. But yeah, that's Sora Online Part 1, the Aincrad Arc. Next time, we're going to be talking about the second arc, which is called the Fairy Dance Arc. So I will see you guys next time for my next review of the Sora Online series. I'll catch you guys next time.